Joined now by University of Oregon Athletic Director Rob Mullens, who is in his office. All right, when you look out your window, what are you seeing these days?
Seeing some cranes and hearing some noise. Sorry if there's anything interrupting the background.
Is this football facility?
Yeah, it's a new indoor football practice facility. Yes.
I see a lot of schools that are pivoting away from facilities going, hey, we have to invest everything we have in the roster. But you guys are able to kind of maybe do things a little differently there.
Important question. Obviously, we're lucky to have one of the best facility infrastructures in all of sports. And the Machowski Center was a fantastic facility for a long, long time. In fact, it's our most used facility. And now that we have 20 sports with a more year-round training practically with the non-traditional seasons and needing more access to it, this became a priority. It's a great addition off of the HDC. It'll have some features that we didn't provide in the Machowski Center, ability to punt and kick without interruption from the roof. It'll also have an HVAC. Now that we're dealing with air quality control issues that we didn't have 15 years ago or 20 years ago, that we now have to be attentive to. This indoor facility will have an HVAC system so that when we have, an AQI in an unhealthy range, that we can really move inside and completely control the air.
I don't remember air quality being a thing when I was a kid, and maybe we couldn't measure it. Maybe we just breathed it. I don't know. Are we dealing with something new scientifically, like with air quality and fires?
I'm with you, John. I don't ever remember it actually, even probably till 10 years ago. And now I have 6 apps on my phone with wind direction and air quality, and watch duty. Yes, it is new, but something we have to be very attentive to here.
I want to go back to kind of the period of time where you're looking to hire a football coach, and you had been through kind of this transition from Mark Helfrich to Willie Taggart to Mario Cristobal. It got stabilized, and then Cristobal's off, and now you're looking for a new coach. Can you maybe look back with some perspective, because it looks like you hired the right guy in Dan Lanning, but some perspective of what you were thinking then and what you saw?
Sure. I mean, obviously, Dan is an outstanding coach, and he's the perfect fit for the University of Oregon. But you're right. We had been through a period, Oregon had a long stretch of fantastic succession plans, from Rich Brooks, who really built this program and got it to a special place. And then Coach Bellotti took it to another level, Hall of Fame coaches in our minds. And then obviously the transition to Chip and his innovation. And then when we had to make a change, and it was the first time that there hadn't been a succession plan in a long time. It wasn't exactly as smooth as anybody would want it to be. And who would have thought that 2 dream jobs would have come open for the coaches that were building something here, but they did, and that happens. And so for us, and athletics changed a lot over that period of time. And so, when the transition, when Mario went back home to Miami, there was a lot happening in college athletics, and it appeared more to be happening. So, we were looking for somebody who was embracing change, who was on their front foot, and understood all the pieces that it took to be successful. The head coach position is really difficult. Beyond the technical expertise of X and O's and even recruiting, building the culture, recruiting the right kind of talent, both on the student athlete side and on the staff side, building the systems are critically important. And when we went through the process, obviously we knew all the technical expertise of Dan. We'd seen what his defenses had done, the impact he'd had everywhere he'd been. When we had a chance to visit with him and do a deeper dive on background, that's when we really started to understand the strategic mindset, the understanding of culture, the understanding of connection, and his passion for his role as a leader of football student athletes. And it became pretty clear of this is a special talent. He just needs the opportunity. We had the opportunity, and the fit was perfect.
You guys have guardrails there that maybe some others don't. You have resources. And so did you feel like it was less of a risk to hire a guy who hadn't been a head coach before because of that? Or did you feel like you could surround him with the right pieces or coach him in a way? Because I feel like he's evolved even as a head coach in a very short time.
No question, but that's Dan, right? He's a continuous learner, and that's what we learned on the deep dive of. He's very strategic, he's very thoughtful, And he's always looking for the debrief. What can I do better? Even when there's success, he's about process. Obviously, results are one part of the scorecard, but he doesn't let that get in the way of the process. So, yes, I mean, there is a big growth from that assistant coach or coordinator position to the head coach position. But everything that we saw in the trajectory and his approach and his preparation for that opportunity gave us confidence that he would do exactly what he's doing.
What did we learn about winning in college football in the last couple of years, or what did you learn? Maybe even watching Indiana do what they did last year, and it feels like anybody can win it if you invest right and you hire right. And what else?
Yeah, college football or college athletics more broadly has changed, right? You have an annual transfer portal. The deregulation has really broadened the depth of teams that compete for championships in some sports, and in some others, it may have even narrowed it. So if you have the resource base, you have the right leadership, you have the right structure, strong alignment, and you have a system that you're committed to, you can show that you can turn it pretty quickly.
You obviously served as the chair of that selection committee. How did that impact how you wanted to schedule moving forward, or how much of this is now a moving target because with leagues and watching what the selection committee does? And can you maybe give us some insight into scheduling non-conference?
Yeah, a lot has changed. When I was on the committee for 4 years and had the good fortune of chairing it for 2, there were only 4 teams. So obviously the expansion changes it. As you said, the strength of your conference schedule changes it. So for us, we've kind of stuck with the same philosophy, even though the depth of the Big Ten is really strong. We've tried to schedule, what you'd say is a group of 5, group of 6 opponent on a regional basis. That in our region tends to be a really strong group of 6 team. We've traditionally had a home and home with another Power 4 team from a different league. And then, because the FCSs are so strong in the Pacific Northwest, we've done that. Now, we've revisited that a few times now that we have 9 league games. But for now, that formula continues to work. Again, I think because of the strength and depth of the Big Ten.
Do you foresee? You took that Georgia game. Remember that Chick-fil-A season opener?
Yeah, that was
Kickoff
Dan's
classic.
first game. Yeah,
First game for Dan Lanning. Welcome to.
That wasn't fair to Dan. Let's just say that.
I'll never forget the look on his face when he left the field. I mean, you could see he was saying, "Hey, there's room here to grow." But would you take that game now, or because of where the playoff is, if someone approached you and said, "Hey, Rob, we want to slip, a week 0 game in there. You're going to make some money on it." How tempting is it, or how much do you have to say, "No, we're good because we're in a good position. We're in a conference where we can get validated"?
It is a resource game, John. So yes, it would be tempting, but the resources would matter. If there was a real opportunity to have a meaningful impact on the resources, because you have to have the resources to be competitive, and as much as we can diversify those resources, the better prepared we're going to be. So it's certainly something we would listen to. I will also say that we are very fortunate to have an incredible fan base. Autzen is a phenomenal experience. As we've learned over the last 2 years, our fans show up wherever we go on the road. So we're also going to be open to unique home and home opportunities as well.
You mentioned Autzen. There's been a lot of talk about expansion or maybe just improvement. Once you get done with this football facility, does the pivot then go back to Autzen, and what you can do with premium seating, or where's your mind?
Yeah, premium seating's a big piece, and as we think about all of our assets, we have to think about revenue generation. And as we've talked about, we've done some surveying of our fans, and we have an outstanding Autzen club. We have phenomenal, I think, what do we have, 50 suites now, all sold out. So that premium is great, but we are always going to look for new opportunities. Again, we have to balance debt, versus roster construction. And so that'll always be a balance. We have good data. We're at a kind of a sweet spot on attendance. We're approaching sold out on a season ticket basis again. So we don't want to disrupt that. We certainly want to maintain the noise, the home field advantage, the fan experience that we have at Autzen. What we're really going to start to do is look at where there are premium opportunities in and around outside the stadium, because the way that we've seen our fans engage in the full weekend, starting Friday night all the way through Sunday morning, we want to be able to see where there's opportunities outside the stadium.
Are we talking about concerts or VIP areas and experiences, or all of the above?
All the above. We did do the Zach Bryan concert at Autzen Stadium. We had 2 sold out days of Banana Ball at Autzen Stadium. So we are certainly in the outside event business, again, for the same reasons, but also VIP corporate type of entertainment of, where is there opportunity for us to host people and make it a full day at Autzen Stadium or in and around Autzen Stadium.
It is the reluctance to add seats. Is it a supply demand thing where you like to have a little demand, a little exclusivity? It creates a little bit of an incentive for people to buy those season tickets, or is it more of a, hey, there's a congestion around the stadium and that is a sticking point? Did that come up in the survey that, hey, people don't want more cars and tougher entrance and exit?
Not necessarily, but I don't know that I don't know that that was what we were going for, but we certainly understand that because we do regular fan surveys that, traffic, the road infrastructure, the parking infrastructure. We're fortunate to have a bicycle valet. It's fun to see people from the upper Midwest visit Autzen Stadium and see our bicycle valet right across the river there. And then we have a fantastic public transportation system that supports it. So as we think about any meaningful expansion in capacity, we would have to think about those major changes as well. But for us, it's about, filling the stadium, maintaining the intimacy and the unique noise that Autzen creates. And right now, I think that 60,000 has been a sweet spot for us.
Rob, the Protect College Sports Act is out there, and there's just been a lot of revisions, and we're all learning how a bill becomes a law. But if you and I could get our hands on that legislation and we could make sure something was included, what one thing would you want to put into that bill that you think would really help the ecosystem?
Narrowing it to one thing is really difficult.
Or give me a couple.
Yes, and we are learning. For those of us in our era, Schoolhouse Rock, the little Bill jingle comes to mind. I think state preemption is an important one, as we're seeing on the age-based eligibility rules being challenged, it seems, by the day in different states. I think that's an important one because we all want to play by one set of rules. I think that's probably the biggest one is, we do want to get to state preemption so that we can get to the focus of supporting our student athletes and competing on the field and helping young people get degrees. But the daily change of another injunction or another temporary restraining order is hard to manage.
I sort of like the idea that you either get 5 years or you get 6 years, and your 4 years of eligibility has to happen in the middle of this. And hey, how about a one-time transfer? Where are we at if we're putting in a transfer rule, you and I?
Yeah, no, I think, obviously the transfer rule can be debated because there's a lot of circumstances that happen, coaching changes. And so you're always going to have some exceptions. But I'm with you. I think 5 years of eligibility is a great opportunity. You get that undergraduate degree, you have an opportunity to compete for 5 years if that's what you want to do. And you do have to have some ability to transfer at least once. Obviously, if you get that undergrad degree, and you need to pursue an advanced degree somewhere else, that opportunity should exist. But yeah, I'm in the same place.
It's such a weird time to watch all this go down. And yet I feel like you guys are well positioned, in part because of all the work that has happened over the last 20 or 30 years in Eugene. I mean, it just feels like this era veered toward the sweet spot for you guys in that you were set up and ready. Did it feel that way to you as the rules were sort of, the deregulation was happening?
Not necessarily, because so much was happening so fast and it was rapid change, and there were wide turns at times. But I think in the end, you know, we have leaned on innovation. We have had to do things a little differently. We had to be first movers. We had to be adaptive. And so the fact that that exists in our culture probably was a little bit of an advantage to us in this time of turbulence or rapid change that maybe we didn't even realize. But part of our DNA, with this being the birthplace of Nike, probably helped us during this time of change.
I want to look at Phil Knight a little bit here because I think the mindset, there was a lot of jokes made over the years. Uncle Phil and, oh, look at Oregon. Oh, and now in this era, everybody's looking over at Phil Knight and going, wish we had one of those. And you have had that benefit. He obviously is a legacy guy. Legacy is important to him. Anybody who read Shoe Dog knows that. And how much planning has gone into what happens in the next 20 and 30 years and how Phil Knight's impact can have a lasting impact at Oregon and extend into generations?
Well, Mr. and Mrs. Knight, there's no doubt have touched, every part of this university, and specifically athletics, not to mention our entire state and probably even the whole industry of college athletics. I mean, look at what Nike stands for and how much they support college athletics. But we spend a lot of time, starting many, many years ago, thinking about what does the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years look like. There is no doubt that we would not be where we are as an athletic department, as a university, without the generosity and the creative energy and passion from Mr. and Mrs. Knight. You can't walk on campus and not see the impact. And whether it's the Knight campus for accelerated scientific learning, or the Knight Law School, or the Knight Library, and then also whether it's Hayward Field or the HDC, the impact is lasting, is meaningful, and has put us in a special place.
There's a little concern in the fan base. They go, look what happened at Oklahoma State after T. Boone Pickens, and is there a succession plan at Oregon? And I have to think Phil Knight has sat down and said, okay, here's what happens. Here's the legacy play. Anything you can share on that front?
No, nothing I can share on that front other than to say that Mr. and Mrs. Knight have given us incredible resources and support to be successful. And the goal was always for us to provide an exceptional student athlete experience, compete for championship, provide these life-changing moments, and that'll always be the goal at the University of Oregon.
The move to the Big Ten, it's working for you guys. I think you're one of the cases where you can look and say, hey, that move worked. Look at where Oregon is. What's going well in that area for you?
Well, it's been obviously, the depth and quality of this league across so many sports. There's outstanding leadership. Commissioner Petiti does a phenomenal job. The care and passion and collaboration amongst the league at all levels, whether it's the presidential level, the athletic director level, the senior women's administrator level, is just phenomenal. And what's fun is for us to go to these new places where they have these passionate fan base, and for our passionate fan base to show up. And then also to welcome those visitors, whether it's Nebraska volleyball bringing 4,000 or 5,000 fans to Matthew Knight Arena, or having this incredible demand, for those league games here. It's been fun to have the 3,000 visiting team seats consumed by our Big Ten opponents, and even more as you look across and see those that are buying them on the secondary market. So the energy, the enthusiasm, the depth and quality of talent has been a lot of fun.
You're still going on walks in the morning? You take a morning walk?
I do. Yeah, I still like to call it a jog, but yes.
Jog, a light jog. What are you thinking about when you're doing that? Because I spend a lot of time thinking, what is it going to look like in 5 years? Will it look anything like this? Or are they just fixing something for now? And then will it be back to regional competition in the Olympic sports? Where's your mind when you're jogging?
So it's probably on a few things related to work. One is, what's the short term, right? How do we manage the short term? And continue to be successful. But also, what is that long-term play? What is the long-term option to stabilize college athletics? It's been this incredible resource for young people for so long. And again, people remember that the big moments on the field or on the court, and we certainly enjoy those too. But when you have whatever 20% of our student athletes that are first generation college students, or another 25%, who are Pell Grant eligible, and what the athletic scholarship means to the future of their life and their family's life, we never want to lose sight of that. And for us, we have 500 student athletes. There tends to be attention in this current model on a small portion of that, but we want to keep the focus on the broader group.
No, that's a good point. And still, as you say that, I think, gosh, you've sniffed around a national championship. You've been in that title game. What would it mean to win one in your time, in your era there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're in competition, so we want to win. Winning championships, whether it's league championships or national championships, is really, really difficult. We've been fortunate to see our track teams compete at that level. We've been knocking on the door on so many sports, whether it's a men's basketball Final Four, women's basketball Final Four. It still stings that we felt like we had the championship team when the tournament got canceled for COVID. We've knocked on the door in so many sports, and football's right there as well. And the set of experiences that it takes to really break through and win that one, we've experienced over the last few years. So again, we have outstanding leadership, outstanding student athletes, and a set of experiences. But you only get 12 opportunities to show it, and so you have to take advantage of all 12 of those.
All right. Before I let you go, I've seen you watch games where you're down on the sideline in the last 5 minutes or whatever, and I've seen you shake hands and kiss babies in the suites. And if you're watching a college football game that you care about, where's the best seat in the house? Where do you want to be?
If I'm at the game or on TV?
You're at the game. You're at the game.
Oh, I like to be on the field at the beginning, probably much like you do, just to get the feel of it. And after a few series, if I'm just watching the game and not going and thanking people for their support, I just want to get high enough where I can see the plays, all 22, and from some sort of sideline angle. But I like to be on the field at the beginning, observe the game at a high enough level where I can see all 22, and then I like to see the last couple of drives on the field as well.
Yeah, that whole ceremony of thanking people and slapping backs. I mean, I've seen you do it. I mean, it's that to me looks exhausting. That to me is the part of the job where I go, you've got to be on all the time.
Yeah, home games, road games are fun in the sense that, you have a smaller group. You tend to do it in the pregame, and so you actually can watch the entire game. Home games, you're probably only seeing, 30-40% of the game because of the other job duties. So it is a little different.
Rob Mullens, appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Appreciate you.
Are you watching the Little League World Series? And if you are, have you already been wowed or knocked over by Kinley Rasmus, who's, I think, going to be the face of this Little League World Series in Williamsport? She's the niece of former Major League Baseball center fielder Colby Rasmus. Her dad played in the big leagues as well as a pitcher. Pitched for her father, Corey, pitched 84 games for the Braves and the Angels. But all Kinley did in her opening game of this Little League World Series was pitch 6 scoreless innings, give up 1 hit, strike out 8, just absolutely dealing from the mound. You can see her here. She's going to make these kids wish they were homeschooled. She's a two-way star. She threw a complete game shutout in the regional final against Tennessee, did not allow a run in 9 innings. She also went 6 for 8 with 2 RBI and a couple of walks. Absolute star of this Little League World Series, and I think going to be the face of this thing from Williamsport. Check it out. She's not just throwing, okay? She's pitching. She's pitching to location. She's spinning it. She's throwing high heat. She's making these hitters look dumb. She's the 8th girl to play in Williamsport, but she might be the best ever to get there. That's a nice segue into why I'm doing today's episode. Jon Patricof, who is the CEO of Athletes Unlimited, happened to be in Portland. I connected with him for an interview. I'm going to share that with you here in a moment. But if you don't know what Athletes Unlimited is, I mean, basically, Athletes Unlimited gives ownership of the league to the athletes, right? There are no owners of the teams. And you saw Patricof's organization come in and sort of set up softball and volleyball and other sports. And really, softball is the one I want to talk about today because one of the expansion teams in softball is playing out in Hillsborough, the Portland expansion team, fast pitch softball, Athletes Unlimited Softball League, and also their playoffs, the All-Star game, very different format to the league, very interesting. And you can kind of feel that this thing is growing in a way with behind television and the nationally televised games and the money being infused in it. They got a huge investment from a Portland business owner, just in the last 24 hours. The investment and the interest and the glow of this thing is kind of on my radar all of a sudden. I wanted to sit down with Patricof for a couple of reasons. Not just because he happens to be the CEO of a league that has a team, an expansion team that just popped up in the Portland area, but this is a guy who's got a background with the entertainment industry and the film industry, and he obviously with an MLS team in New York, he was the president of that team and involved there, highly involved there. And his background is fascinating as well. His father, highly successful, equity investor, capital investor. His grandfather was an orphan immigrant from Russia, one of 9 kids who was adopted and then thrived as a stockbroker in New York. There's a family of origin story here that I think is worth paying attention to. The vision of Patricof, the ability to see around the corner as it pertains to not just investment, but in this sports world that is growing. Women's sports, you see the investment that Patricof's entity is making in that area and the push they're making into that area. I just think it's a really interesting, fascinating, top-of-mind discussion. And yes, I'm starting the discussion by talking about a girl who's playing in Williamsport who's absolutely dealing on the mound. But I sat down with Patricof. Here's our interview. I'd love to know in the comment section what you think of where this is going to go. What could Athletes Unlimited be? Does it work? Will it thrive? He calls it in the interview an overnight success story that's 50 years in the making. Stick around. Jon Patricof joining us, Athletes Unlimited. Look, you're reinventing this. I need to know the entrepreneurial spirit. I want to dive into this. So, how you doing? You're in Portland. Tell us about your day in Portland.
Thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it. It's great to be with you and great to talk about Athletes Unlimited and the softball league, and we'll dive into a lot of stuff. Yeah, I just got in to Portland from New York, and I'm here for a couple of days. There's a big conference going on, epicenter of women's sports, and so I got to know the Bethals, and through my involvement with the AUSL and the Portland Cascade, we're slowly becoming a part of this great community, and it's been an amazing first year for the team here, and so it's great to be out here with other executives and athletes in the women's sports world across sports and be part of this growing community.
I've got 3 daughters, and I just sort of watched the explosion with women's college basketball a few years ago. And then it felt like all of a sudden there was this great opportunity. You're doing some really forward thinking things. What is happening in that space?
It's an overnight sensation, 50 years in the making. So it's, I'll just give you a little bit of background on myself. I've been in the sports and media entertainment world my whole career. And my journey in pro women's sports started in 2018 when I just thought there was a huge opportunity that was untapped, amazing athletes, some really great evidence of TV ratings and viewership, but there really just was not a lot of investment going into these sports. It was kind of most things were being done on a shoestring, underinvested. And at that time, I was running the MLS team in New York, NYCFC. I got a good chance to come out here a few times when we played Portland. That was always fun. And we got a couple good wins, I should mention, back then. It was obvious to me that there was just so much incredible talent with the athletes. The their personalities and the way live sports was going. I just thought there was a huge untapped opportunity, and I dove in with both feet with Athletes Unlimited, my partner Jonathan Soros, and what we did across sports. But then over the last 7 years, it's just been a massive influx of investment and growth that we've seen really across women's sports. I'm really active in the women's softball space. But we've been active in women's volleyball and women's basketball. I've seen firsthand what's happening in soccer and lacrosse and other sports. There's just a lot going on in women's hockey. So people have woken up. People have realized there's a huge opportunity here, and it's a very exciting time to be part of this growing ecosystem.
I want to go back maybe 2 generations. Your grandparents immigrate, and I believe Dad obviously had the ability to see around the corner. You look at his investment portfolio from the late 70s and you go where does that entrepreneurial spirit come from in your family, do you think?
Yeah, thanks. I always love talking about this. Yeah, my dad's father came over as one of 9 orphans, actually, to Middletown, Ohio. He was adopted into Middletown. He eventually made it to New York. He was actually a stockbroker eventually. My dad grew up in New York City, and he went to Ohio State. He came back to New York. He ended up getting into the finance world, and he over time gravitated towards the venture capital industry, really in the really early days. And this is now we're talking kind of the late 60s, early 70s, and he had an incredible, successful career in the venture world. And I grew up in a household where obviously he was always talking to entrepreneurs, and he always told us the venture business was really hard and not to go into it, and that these startups were so challenging. And I got to see a lot of those challenges firsthand. But I think in some ways, I started my career at Disney, so I went the opposite route to begin. And I got some pretty formal training at some big companies like Disney, and ultimately went and spent some time on Wall Street. And then, as I said, went to NYCFC. And then in between, I spent some time at the Tribeca Film Festival, which was very much an entrepreneurial venture with Robert De Niro and his partners right after 9/11, and had an incredible run there. And then this latest chapter in women's sports, I think I get really excited about ideas and opportunities that I don't think other people see. I think I gravitate towards them. I love building things. I love building teams. I love working with people. Yeah, and I think I get it really energizes me to work on businesses that are going to impact people. And ultimately that's kind of at the early part of what I think is going to ultimately be a long-term trend. And so, yeah, that does get me up in the morning, and I've been really fortunate to have an awesome career. And this last chapter at Athletes Unlimited has been, really the best chapter yet. I've loved it, and I'm excited. And it's still early days, very much in the women's sports world. So I'm excited about what lies ahead.
Well, you're doing different things, right? Without owners and with athletes sort of having ownership of it, and really creative and different things that are happening competitively underneath that umbrella. But I have to think you go back to Disney. What do you learn there that you go, okay, this is cool. Disney has to operate this way. But if I were more nimble, if I were different, if I thought outside the box, it feels like you're using some things maybe you're drawing upon from decades ago.
Absolutely. I mean, I think what struck me at Disney is the power of live events, and ultimately, it served me really well when I started to think about opportunities, in particular when I joined Tribeca. And I'll give you this example. So when I knew that the people who were working with Robert De Niro after 9/11 to launch this film festival, and when they came to me a couple years into their evolution of the festival, they said, "Listen, we really need some business expertise. We need to think about this." Immediately, I started to think about the model at Disney, which was, in my belief, the biggest and most powerful part of that company is those theme parks and the experience people have there that then radiates throughout. And of course, the films and Mickey Mouse and intellectual properties, all great, but live events, in my opinion, and that theme park experience and what it means, and then how it radiates out into all these different businesses, really seeped into my consciousness. And then that's been the last 25 years of my life, which has been, Tribeca. I'm thinking about this incredible film festival that was all around independent film and brought people from all the world, all parts of the world together in New York for 2 weeks a year. And I went to the festival. I was like, this is incredible. But it's really, as much as it's this live experience, it could have so many other pieces beyond just the 2 weeks of the year. And that led me to 11 years there, where we grew and built it and expanded it, and always centered around independent film and the experience of the festival, and kind of bringing that out to audiences around the world. And then in sports, it's very much the same, right? It's for many, many decades, live sports was only about what happened in the arena. Obviously, that's changed dramatically. The business has become all about, the arena experience, of course, but really, really what happens outside the arena. And I always go back to my Disney days, and it's got to be the best quality. It's got to be amazing experiences for the fans and for the community. And then always thinking creatively about kind of how new technologies are going to impact that experience and how they're impacting consumers, and how you make sure your product, services, and your brand show up in those spaces. And that's very much what sports has become, and makes it super exciting.
I think I read that your dad played stickball, right, in the streets, and as a kid, you make the games up, you make the rules up. All right, you can't hit the ball to right field. You have to hit the ball here. It's an automatic out, or this is how you get a point. There's some of that going on in your league, with some real differences to how the teams are put together and how you score points. And what does it feel like for you to see that kind of play out, as you see it on TV, or you see athletes getting it, or viewers getting your vision?
As I mentioned, back in 2018, I thought there was a huge opportunity in women's pro sports. I looked at kind of traditional investments in the NWSL, the WNBA. At the time, both leagues were quite frankly struggling. They weren't attracting investment. They weren't attracting sponsors. I thought that was really interesting. I thought that meant there was some opportunities that I saw that others weren't. But ultimately, I partnered with Jonathan Soros, and it was really Jonathan who said, listen, if I'm going to go and we're going to invest and we're going to go make a big move into women's sports, I think we should really control our destiny. I don't want to be one of 10 or 12 or 15 owners. Let's go and let's actually launch a league or a property that we can move quickly in, and we can make changes, and we can make mistakes, but then correct and figure it out. And so we started to formulate ideas around what could that look like, and what sports could we go into. And in that journey, softball came up very quickly. We thought a lot about volleyball. We thought about hockey. One of the people we went to said, well, why don't you go talk to the athletes in these sports and see what they say? Like, what are their ideas? And I like to say that I think Athletes Unlimited might have been the first pro sports league ever to launch, where the athletes actually had input prior to the league launching into what it was going to look like. And through those conversations with athletes, in particular in softball, which became the first league we launched, we really got into this idea that if we're going to go do this, let's partner with the athletes, and let's kind of design a league that really focuses on them, and of course on the fans, and of course on other aspects of what the business needs, but let's start with that athlete experience. And so March 3rd of 2020, we announced we were going to be launching Athletes Unlimited Softball League. It was going to be a 5-week competition, all in one city, reduce travel, make it a tight, compact season. And we had a lot of ideas around how to innovate around the game to make that exciting. March 3rd, 2020, we announced, COVID hits. We launched nonetheless in August of 2020, and looked kind of prescient accidentally, because we were all in one location. It was a limited number of players. We had a great first season. We had this 5-week season that was exciting and terrific, and we got on ESPN and CBS, and we brought on great partners. And from there, we launched the similar model in volleyball. We launched a similar model in basketball, similar model in lacrosse. Now, over the last 7 years, the business has evolved a lot. And in particular, there was a very big moment in 2024, so about 2 years ago, where we really saw how each of our sports was growing, and in particular how softball was growing. And we thought it was time to expand our softball presence from that 5-week season into a traditional league. And so today, we're just completing the second season of the Athletes Unlimited Softball League, which is now a 6-team traditional softball league with, as I mentioned, a team here in Portland, a team in Salt Lake, a team in Oklahoma City, a team in Austin, a team in Chicago, a team in Raleigh-Durham. And we run now a very significant pro softball league that has 6 teams, that plays a 25 game schedule, that culminated, in a championship, and starts to look a lot like the other leagues. But at the core, what's very unique and different is that we partner with the athletes on all aspects of it. Still, we have a player executive committee, and we've introduced. It's interesting. We've reintroduced a lot of traditional elements of the league and the experience, but at its core, it's very different because the athletes really continue to be, the principal decision makers and our partners in it.
A little bit of news. Rule 42 Sports Group coming in. Tell us about that partnership. How does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're really excited this week. Renee James, who is a member of the Portland community and a big fixture up here. And Renee is the former president of Intel. She launched Ampere Computing, which she ended up selling very recently. She's an incredibly accomplished business person, and Renee, through her own kind of journey since leaving the tech world, really came to look at both baseball and softball worlds and identify what she thought were a huge number of areas that were just untapped. And among those was, identifying the opportunity in pro women's softball. And we were really fortunate to get introduced through Harold Reynolds at Major League Baseball. And we got connected, and Renee has now come on as one of our largest investors and is joining our board of directors. And that puts her in a group that includes ourselves, Athletes Unlimited, also includes Major League Baseball, who is a significant partner in what we're doing at the AUSL, and as well as a couple other investors. And so we're really trying to put together, obviously, the best athletes on the world. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about what's happened on the field, and the action, the excitement of pro women's softball is really like indisputable. I mean, there's no one in my journey over the last 7 years who hasn't watched pro women's softball and said this is just an incredible product. But it's our job, it's my job as CEO to make sure that we put in place an incredible management team, incredible managers, and we have an incredible commissioner in Kim Ng, who's an absolute legend. And then, of course, to put in place the right investors and board of directors and support the athletes with everything that they deserve and what the fans deserve.
What would your grandfather or your dad say when you brought this idea to them at the dinner table?
It's funny. So, listen, I'm very fortunate. My dad's about to turn 92. I spent a lot of time with him. He's still very active. He ran a marathon just a few years ago, the oldest person to run the New York City Marathon. And he's still in the venture business. His recent fund is focused on the longevity space, but he still works every day. And honestly, he's been among my biggest supporters. I always say, my dad, I've 2 great brothers, my wife, they are incredible support network. And my dad's always been incredibly supportive of career decisions. And, he has certain mantras he lives by, but, being a great supporter, he approaches everything with incredible energy. He's very objective in a lot of ways. He tells it like it is. His reputation is he's a very straight shooter. And I'm very fortunate, but he's always been just an incredible, tireless advocate. I mean, if he was on here doing the interview, he'd talk about his business, but he'd almost certainly find a way to pivot to talk about Athletes Unlimited because he'd love to promote and support what we're doing. So he's a big believer. He's been out to a few of our games and come out on different occasions. So I'm fortunate. I mean, listen, I think I always say to be a successful entrepreneur, or one of the pieces of my, one of the things I'm most grateful for is that network of support. And I don't know how people do it. If you don't have a supportive partner, my wife's been incredibly supportive, but to have a supportive father or mother, my mom, obviously, who passed away recently, was obviously the most important person in my life growing up, and an incredible supporter in that same way. And I just, I think it makes things a lot easier when you can go through the struggles and the ups and downs of entrepreneurship and carving your own path, but have the support from the people around you.
College sports, pro sports have in some ways sold out to television, and we all know that's a necessary part of generating revenue. How do you hold on to the spirit and the essence and the soul of what you want to do, while also in that space recognizing this is a business, athletes want to make money, the television, obviously putting this on TV is great for your leagues?
Yep. So, there are a few big keys of what we're trying to do and what we have to do going forward. So first of all, Athletes Unlimited Softball League, we had 90 games this season across the league. 15 of those were nationally televised on ESPN. We also had partnerships with CBS and Major League Baseball, MLB Network. The ratings on ESPN have been absolutely tremendous. Our most recent game this weekend was our second highest rated game ever on ESPN. Our championship game did over 750,000 viewers. Those are just huge numbers in the sports world, and numbers that no one really would have thought, women's softball or women's sports. You're talking about numbers that exceed many of the pro men's leagues that are out there, some of the big leagues. So it's a juggernaut. The TV is really important. But I think as you said, I think you always have to keep your eye on the fan experience in stadiums, which for us is I think a tremendous experience. We had 25 sellouts across the country this year, and the fans love it. And then I think right now a huge piece of our job is figuring out ways to connect the fans with the athletes in a very organic way. One of the biggest strong points of women's sports is you've got these incredible world-class athletes. You come and watch, you'll be blown away. You'll see just incredible hitting and defense and amazing pitching. But also the stories these women have to tell, and they're great storytellers. And so in a world where social media is so important, where storytelling is so important, people want to understand and know who these people are, along with watching them perform. And we need to support and make sure we have the right tools in place. Our social media team and our content creation team are biggest team in our company. And we really spend a lot of time and a lot of effort across all the platforms, making sure that our athletes can connect with the fans and support them, however we can to grow their presence. And I think that's the biggest thing. You've got this amazing pipeline of talent coming out of NCAA softball, juggernaut programs across the country. And now, and historically they've had nowhere to go, right? They've just, their careers have, for the most part, have gone away. And now with the AUSL, they have places to go. And that has a huge impact. We have a great partnership with Little League, for example. And we just had two of our teams go down to the Little League Softball World Series, which happens in Greenville, North Carolina. And you see those players interact with these young girls all over the world. And you just think about the long-term impact that has on now all of a sudden these young athletes understanding, hey, we can actually become a pro, athlete. That's a pathway for us. We can stay in this sport, and we really believe in that work there. And then ultimately we've got the 2028 Olympics around the corner, and softball's been one of those sports that's been in the Olympics and out of the Olympics, and that's been tough. But now we're all leading into 2028, and that's a huge moment for this sport. Softball will be back in the Olympics. The rosters will be packed with, AUSL stars, and we're already pretty hard at work thinking about how we best tee up the league, the players for that very pivotal moment.
You've got the Savannah Bananas, who didn't invent this game. You can go back to the Harlem Globetrotters or Eddie Feiner, the king in his court, Max Patkin. What can we learn from the success of the Bananas, or what can your league learn?
Everyone says it, but I always I think of the NBA in particular, and Adam Silver and others saying, this is they view themselves as the entertainment business, right? And this is the entertainment business in a large way. I've always, for better or for worse, I see sports certainly as entertainment first and foremost, but I see it as a pretty deep, also powerful force, and entertainment can be a powerful force. They lean heavily more into the comedy and a lot of the great storytelling that comes from those moments. And I think others have leaned into entertainment in the sense of, intense competition and rivalry. And so I think the Bananas do a great job of bringing forward kind of that just pure enjoyment and that fun. There's a lot of emotion in what they do. And I think that's a great lesson for us all to learn. We, at the same time, I've heard Jesse Cole speak, and I think the Bananas are doing this too. They're moving their model also somewhat into more emphasis around their competitive elements. So I think they also know that, when there's stakes and storylines, that's when you really unlock the unlimited potential. And we've used that kind of mantra, at AU for since the beginning, which is this idea of stakes and storylines. So they do great with the storylines. You got to tell them, but I think having stakes is really important too. And I think that's, a big job of all pro sports organizations.
I don't know how old you were when you heard Apple in your household, but your dad was like one of the early investors. He saw something. You're into this now. It's just fun to kind of see what those grandkids ended up doing, your brothers and yourself. I think it's just a fascinating story of a family and an immigrant, really, when you go back to your grandfather's story.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I mean, I think, this is very much an entrepreneurial venture. I mean, it's an exciting moment for me. We're really fortunate. I mean, I think we've had incredible partners. One of the things I'm doing, obviously, while I'm out here, is I spent some time over at Adidas, who's been absolutely incredible to partner to us, and I know they're a partner of yours. And you have to have people and partners. I mentioned my family, my father, everyone believing me. I think what it takes early in any successful venture is, those key early partners who come on. And I think it's always important to remember, it's been one of my dad's mantras of like, remember you're the person who wrote you the first check, and, always take their phone call. And that's what a lot of what we're doing here in women's pro softball, the AUSL, is about, which is what's one of the fun things about this is the partners and the investors and the athletes. I say all the time, I mean, it's still very early days in what we're doing. We've made a lot of progress. It's kind of progress is happening at a very rapid pace. But, one of the great things is going to be, we're all going to be able to look back, decades from now and remember kind of these early days and having been there early on. And I think we're all going to, get a lot of satisfaction and feel great about that. And that's what's exciting about this journey.
Jon, I appreciate you giving us your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Joining us live via satellite from, where are you, a bus station?
I'm at a gas station right now. I actually wanted to call you to tell you about our $6 deals.
Orion Levine joining us. You're going to be at Helium Comedy Club.
That's right.
Tell us about the journey, because people always say that half the fun is the trip. You tell me.
You know what? I'm coming to you live from outside of an Arco, somewhere outside of Seattle. And I can only confirm to you that the journey really is what it's all about. I mean, Here I am. I'm in paradise. We had a great show in Seattle last night. I'm really excited for this weekend's shows. I've heard great things about this club. I love Portland. It's one of my favorite liberal strongholds, and I'm just ready. I'm ready to party with you guys.
I love that. You're a Bay Area kid, right? You grew up in the Bay Area?
I grew up in Berkeley, California, yeah.
Okay, I'm South Bay, and so
right.
How does Berkeley shape you becoming a comedian, stand-up?
Wow, that's a great question. I think that, starting comedy in the Bay Area, I think that it kind of, San Francisco especially, kind of gets a rap for being kind of like the audiences being kind of like uptight. And I don't think I really bought into that until I moved to Los Angeles and realized like how much more rowdy those crowds are and how much more dirtier they want things. So I kind of came up in this really like clean, very like more of like a polite environment. And then since I've moved on from there, I've definitely changed. I'm talking a lot more about more raunchy topics, and I guess that's where my heart leads me for some reason. But I mean, I love finding a way to get audiences that maybe don't think they're that receptive to that stuff to like really laugh at a good Jeffrey Epstein joke or something.
I love that. Look, heliumcomedy.com if people want to see Orion do his thing. Were you the kid that was always in front of the room? Is it like that the story? Like
I unfortunately was. Yeah, my teachers considered me kind of a nightmare. I got many letters home, many calls home. And my parents even recommended that I do stand-up comedy at a really young age. But I was so anti-authority that I said, absolutely not. You're not going to tell me what to do. And here I am 20 years later doing the damn thing. So
what do mom and dad do for work?
So my mom and dad both work in the medical industry. My mom is a nurse. My dad is a psychiatrist, and they met in a hospital. So very different like line of work, but they're both really funny Jewish people who like messing around. My dad was a child actor, so I have this like show business inside of me in my genetics. So it's like I'm really happy to be doing what I'm doing, and they're very proud of me. And
I love it, and I can tell you're having fun with it. Now, is it true though that did you take a bus, or are you in a rental car? How are you getting from Seattle to Portland?
So originally I was going to be on a bus, and then I ended up, a friend of mine who came out to the show is a teacher on summer break right now.
Mm.
So they offered to give me a ride to Portland and to come hang at the show tonight. So
I love that.
yeah. We're tripping.
So where are you right now? Like, where are you? What's the scene? Like,
I'm at
nowhere?
this Arco somewhere outside of Seattle. I don't
Okay.
exactly know where, to be honest.
I love that. It's a beautiful sunny day. I'm interested in your perception of Seattle versus Portland, because there's like kind of like a little brother thing that goes on with Portland.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you would relate. It's Fresno looking over at LA kind of thing.
Interesting. I mean, as somebody who lived in LA for 3 years, I really look down upon Fresno, but but I think I think that people in Seattle really hold people in Portland close to their heart, and I'm curious if it's the same way.
Yeah.
If you use Seattle that way.
Yeah, I don't think so. All right. How much of your act changes one city to the next?
I am definitely more ideologically aligned with West Coast kind of like liberal politics, and I find myself really kind of not leaning into that. I like making fun of liberals and the people on this side of the country. So and I find that if you're coming at it like with good intentions, I think people are down to laugh at themselves. So I definitely make fun of the way that we view the world and the way that we behave and the performative nature of our behavior.
I love that. And I love the idea too, that like when people go into that room, they sort of suspend a little bit of their anger or their hostility.
Absolutely. Yes.
You know, and they go, okay.
My favorite thing about stand-up is getting people to laugh at stuff that they normally wouldn't think is funny. I mean, that's like the biggest joy to me. So if you come to my shows this weekend, you can definitely expect to be laughing at things that you might be a little bit ashamed to be laughing at. But
all right. So when you're road tripping with your teacher friend here, are you listening to music? Are you listening to a podcast? Are you guys just talking? What's going on?
I offered to buy us breakfast, coffee, and bagels, and I kind of just gave her my credit card and let her run with it. And we got a lot of expensive, bougie snacks for the road.
Love it.
So we've been doing that and listening to music. It's been a great time, and it's a beautiful day out here. We got Mount Rainier in front of us, and it's just an awesome sight.
Well, awesome. I appreciate you joining us from the Arco, and we'll see you. We'll see you at Helium Comedy.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much, you guys.
All right. Thanks, Orion. Thanks for joining us. Right. Appreciate you, man.
See ya. Bye.
All right. There he goes. Orion Levine. You can get tickets at heliumcomedy.com. This show, I told you, will take you places. We'll take you new places. We'll show you new things. There you go. Comedian from the road.